everybody, and welcome to the Shabbat show. Hope everybody's doing well. Another week together. I can't believe it's another week. You know what I'm talking about? Every single week we get to see each other again. It's an honor for me to be back, an honor to be here with you right now. And each week, as we spend more time together, as more people join the show, we're building a bigger and stronger community of like-minded individuals that are here to celebrate our culture, our history, our heritage, and Shabbat. So thanks so much for joining us. We've got an incredible show for you today. You know, growing up, as I said to you in a couple of shows ago, growing up, I come from a very interesting background. My mom's Ashkenazi from Munkac, Romania. Munkac and Romania. My father is Sephardi from Aleppo. When you're a kid growing up, life is very black and white. And sometimes when you're growing up, you don't really appreciate, when you're little, the diversity of your background. Kids like things that are black and white. And so many times in my life growing up, my mom would say to me, Charlie, you got to be proud of who you are. You got to be proud of the differences that you come from. And she was right. I couldn't be prouder of my background. I couldn't be prouder of where I grew up and where I'm from. And sometimes in life, we have to take a minute and understand who we are and understand where we're from. I remember this moment like it was yesterday. It was one of the most inspiring moments of my life. Because I was born a Jew. So I never really took it seriously that, like, it's great to be a Jew. I don't know what it's like to not be a Jew. I never really appreciated what it means to be a Jew. What that stands for. It is what it is. That's who I am. And one day it changed. I had a guest on the radio show. His name was Bernd Wolschlager. Bernd Wolschlager is what I would call a wonderful Jew. Why? Because he's a doctor. And when I grew up, if you're a doctor, you're amazing. That's the Jewish mom's dream. And he lives in Miami or in South Florida. Like, what could be better? A doctor from Florida, does it get better than that? But what makes him so special isn't that he's just a doctor. That would be enough for many Jewish moms. What makes him so special is his background. Bernd came from Germany. In the 1970s, in the Munich Olympics, for those of you who remember, Palestinian terrorists killed many of the Israeli Olympians. Now, during that time in Germany, there were papers speaking all over of the tragedy. And there was one paper that said, Jewish blood spills in Germany again. Bernd was a small little boy at the time in a school. His father actually received an Iron Cross from Adolf Hitler. His father was a Nazi soldier. In Germany in the 1970s, the Germans had basically decided that the Holocaust was a war. It wasn't really a Holocaust. And the schools weren't talking to the kids about what took place in that land just a few decades earlier. And Bernd walked into school the day after the papers came out. Jewish blood spills on German soil again, and asked his teachers, what does this mean? Was it before? When was the first time? Can you imagine? 1970, a kid in Germany didn't know about the Holocaust. And his teacher said, nah, it's nothing. You know those Jews. They exaggerate everything. It was a war. People died. And Jews were one of them. But he didn't buy it. He knew there was more. And on the radio show, I'm listening to this man tell over his story. And I can't believe what's happening in my brain. A Nazi father? Like, what's going on? And he tells a story of where he hitchhikes to Israel. Because he wants to understand these people that his father and everyone he knew hates so much. He ends up meeting a girl at a bar. She brings him home. Her father's a Holocaust survivor. Can you imagine the scene where the Holocaust surviving father has his daughter bring home a boy whose father was a Nazi? Like, can you just imagine this? And he's like expecting like the worst. And the father was kind. He understood. He didn't know. He took him around to the neighborhood and he showed him Israel. And Bernd asked him the following question. He said, "What's with all the kindergartens?" He goes, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "What's with the kindergartens?" He goes, "The kindergartens?" He goes, "Wait, weren't you the nation that just were sent to your slaughter? 6 million people." He obviously learned about it since. 6 million people. This is 10 minutes later. This is 1970s. Shouldn't you be in bunkers? Why would you bring children to a world like this? Why are there kids playing? Shouldn't you be protecting yourself in bunkers and just surviving? Why are you building the next generation? And the old man didn't have a good answer. He says, "That's what we do. That's just what we do. We don't stop. We're the Jewish people." And Byrne told me on the radio, he said, "At that moment, I understood what it means to be eternal. It means you're never going away, no matter what." Hitler and all his armies that almost took over the world could have a plan to annihilate you. You're not going down, and you know it. As soon as you get out, you build again. You build again. You build again. And at that moment, he said, if I want to be part of one nation, I want to be part of an eternal nation. Can you imagine? He converts. He becomes an officer in the Israeli. Can you imagine his father fought for the Nazis? His son is an officer for the IDF. Ultimately moves to America. And then, like I said, achieves the Jewish dream and becomes a doctor. At that moment, I felt a pride like I never felt before. There's something about us. There's something about us that is so special that someone from the outside can look at it and see it. And sitting in that interviewer's chair, swelling with pride that I was born into this nation, I felt this sense of, do I know how lucky I am? Did I ever stop to think about the improbability of the Jewish people? Am I proud of who I am? That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to stop and pause and swell up our chests and learn about just how incredible it is to just be part of this nation. Get ready. We got great guests. We got a great crew. We got Rav Gav Friedman on. We've got Max Antaby on. We've got you have Rabbi Milstein, Rachmiel Milstein on. These are superstars. This is like all-star weekend. Jamie Geller is on. Send me your shout-outs for Shabbat Shalom. That's coming on as well. Before we get going, a couple announcements. Number one, MindFlex. Take a look at MindFlex that's taking place. I'll turn to my Project Inspire team to get all those ads up. MindFlex is taking place this week as well. Of course, as you know, here it is. MindFlex this week this is like an all-star cast over here. I see Rabbi Zach Katinsky, Rabbi Sittner is on, Real Change in the Air, MindFlex. We also have the Deep Dive MindFlex series going on, so check that out this week. It's taking place on Tuesday. Of course, Shabbat Show has its own website. Check it out, theshabbatshow.com. If there's someone in the world that you want to know about it now, if there's someone you're thinking of right now that's like, wow, I would love for them to appreciate the Jewish people. If you know somebody who you would love for them to appreciate the Jewish people more, just send it to them right now, shabbatshow.com. This is what the show is about. The more people we get, the greater our community is, and of course, the one-on-ones. Remember, if you haven't yet signed up and you'd like to, especially as we get into the holiday season, to learn more about anything you want to learn about, text one-on-one to 97,000. That's your one-on-one opportunity. Before we continue, one more thing. Important announcement. September 4th is Project Inspire's online dinner. Project Inspire is the host of the show. As you can see, they're spending countless hours trying to inspire us through so many different ways. They're an incredible organization, and they can use your support. Here it is. They have their dinner coming up. The guests are off the charts. Take a look at the flyer. It's September 4th. You can sign up even now if you're on the website. Sign up now. Go to theshabbatshow.com to find it, projectsinspire.com to find. But you want to be part of it. I'll be there. Other people will be there. I know Jesse Freeman's going to be hosting it with me. We're going to have a great time. You don't want to miss it. Singers, the whole thing. September 4th, mark it on your calendars. Okay, let's begin. So for those of you who do or do not know, there's one of the most famous seminars of all time is a seminar called Discovery. Discovery is a seminar that was built by Aisha Torah and maybe has changed the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. And in there, one of the offerings is this concept of the Jewish people, understanding the 7 wonders of Jewish history, understanding the Jewish people are this eternal riddle. They've survived longer than any other civilization. They're constantly under threat. And what is it about the Jewish people? So we caught up with some of the top speakers this week, and we brought them to you live to your home. This is like you don't got to go to the seminar. I mean, you do if you want to, but we brought the 3 superstar speakers to speak to you today. And the first one is a person I had a chance to catch up with earlier today. He's in Israel, so it's Shabbat for him. His name is Rav Gav. And I am positive you've heard of Rav Gav. Rav Gav is originally from New York. He has spent the last decade studying and teaching in various yeshivas through Jerusalem. He is teaching in Yeshiva Torah, tons of different lectures. He is incredibly popular. He is an all-star on the circuit. People absolutely adore him wherever he goes around the world. Sometimes I sit in his classes and I cannot hold myself back from the wisdom and the laughter that he brings out. It's an incredible concept. Check out Rav Gav and the conversation I had with him this morning. Okay, we're joined here with the one and only Rav Gav. Rav Gav, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
It's so good to have you on. I'm feeling the holiness of the land of Israel when I just even speak to you.
Yeah, I wish I could feel it like you do.
So we're talking about the Jewish people, the improbability of the Jewish people. And it's important sometimes, like, when you're in things, you don't appreciate it, right? Like, if you're just in the nation, you just go through your day and you Shabbat and then holidays and this and that. And it's hard to, like, pull back and get the whole picture as to, wait a second, like, we really shouldn't even be here. Like, if you look at the stats, if you look at the numbers, look at the probabilities, if someone's investing in the Jewish people and, like, hey, is this going to really make it? Is this a good stock I want to buy? And you look at, like, exile, persecution, few in number, like everything that should be cutting against us, it seems like it doesn't. So give me your perspective as to the improbability of the Jewish people.
Yeah, so first off, I just want to share, there's a quote that most people, when they talk about this idea, that they quote Mark Twain. And Mark Twain famously said that I'm just paraphrasing big time, but the Egyptian, the Roman, the Babylonian, they all rose up, they held their torch high for a time, they fed out the dream stuff, and they're gone. And essentially the Jews saw them all, beat them all, is what he always was, exhibiting no decadence of age, no infirmities, no weakening of his parts. I cannot believe I'm saying this by heart.
Yeah, you're nailing it. Wow. Are you Mark Twain? Are you Mark Twain?
Whatever. It's call me Mr. Clemens, I prefer. But basically he says the Jewish people are still here. It's miraculous. What is the secret to its immortality? It really makes no sense. But that's the quote most people quote. But very few people, I don't say very few, less people quote Rav Yaakov Emden. Rav Yaakov Emden was a great, great sage. He lived in the 18th century. That's the 1700s for people who are lacking in math skills. And he says amazing. He says, you know what? I swear by my life, when I use a very intense wording, that the greatest miracle that has ever happened is not the splitting of the sea, is not the plagues, is not the craziness that Judaism is. It's the fact that we exist. Mm-hmm. That is the greatest miracle that can ever be told. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy.
So yeah, so let's talk about that for a second, because I think that when we sort of get lost in the drama of it, right? We find out the story of in the war of 1967, this happened and that happened, or, the Scuds came in 1990s and it missed this. And we seem to love the sensationalism of miracles. Yeah. And it seems like we lose the the real powerful miracles, right? The small stuff, that it's a greater miracle that the state of Israel even exists or the Jewish people even exist than any one particular thing. Why is that? And how does that sort of change if we can just shift the lens on how we see miracles in general?
You know, the fact that we are having a discussion right now, that I'm in Israel and that we're talking about Shabbat, the Shabbat program, and that you have Jews that are going to be celebrating it in some way, shape, or form. These are like the small, quote unquote, mundane things that you kind of, like you're saying, we fly by in life. But if you take a step back, it's yes, there's 67, and why you're going to skip to what, 48, and what about, you know, you just pretty much 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. I mean, 18, 51. I mean, 17, 51. I mean, 16, 51. Just the fact that we're here, it's like, you know, it goes, I know it's like rain. Rain is miraculous, but you get used to it. You know, it's like, okay, we're here. There are other people here. So what's the big deal? Right. The answer is, how many other people went through what we went through and go through what we go through? You know, it's just unbelievable. And I'll tell you, really, it goes back to the Holy Bible itself, the words of the Lord. You know, God tells us, if you take a look, I don't know who's listening, but I'll give you from all three perspectives. Genesis 17:7 or Genesis 17:7 if you're not from the South. Bereshis, Yud Zayin Zayin, or Bereshit, Yud Zayin Zayin. If you look over there, it says an amazing idea. It says that God basically promises we're going to be here. We're going to be an eternal nation. We're always going to be here. Now you think about that, okay, like somebody at the time with them saying it, you can say, all right, right, whatever you say, sure, all right, good luck with that. But we have hindsight. We get to look back, pogrom after pogrom, you know, Holocaust after Holocaust, quite literally. And the fact is that we're still here. I mean, that's just pretty nuts. It really just takes time just to stop and look through history. One of the greatest, and Rav Yaakov Emden, who I quoted before, is not a simple person. Right. If he's saying that means he's picking this to be the one of like, stop and just think, just open your eyes. We shouldn't be here. And it was promised we're going to be here. It was predicted and we're here.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think you're right. And I think really, it's one thing to say it, but I think what we want to do here on the show and just in our conversation now is to move it to a level of awareness, right? That if you just, like, I think what you characterized it was great. When God said it, so to speak, or at least in the beginning, or let's say earlier on in time, right? You're looking at the Torah and you're living during the times, let's say, like of the first time the Jews conquested Israel, right? And you're like, okay, like I got it, but like, you know, maybe not. I mean, like the nation next to me looks good, and this nation called Girgashi looks like they're okay, and you know, these guys look like they're wonderful, and like, but if you really think about it, right? There's a Jew who is in Israel and the Romans were killing everybody, and they were just dominating the world. And like there's one Jew getting rocked, and then beforehand the Babylonians, and I'm sure that Jew's like, we're dead. It's over. Like, what are the chances? Like, we're sitting around, we're getting persecuted, they're moving us from left to right. We can't do this, we can't do that. Like, what are the chances that Jew, his great-great-great-great-grandchildren are still going to be sitting around today?
You know, it's like, it's not a given that we're going to be here. It's not a given. I mean, it's only a given because God said so. But if you would look logically, it's not a given. So when I say to a person, hey, isn't it amazing we still exist? They're like, what's the big deal? Like, what? I mean, what's the big deal? What is that? No one exists anymore. Like, nobody. Right. And we have new cultures and new existence and new stuff. And like, what do you mean? There's Romans? No, there aren't, but there are people that live in Rome. Yes, there are people that live in Rome, but the Roman Empire is gone. You understand? Right, it's over. Right. We have the Jewish people that, again, we're talking about, this is a Shabbat program, which means we're connected to 3,332 years. 3,332 years, it's going all the way back. And if I could just drag us in just a minute, just 2 points, which I think come out from this is, it's not just that it was that God said we're going to be an eternal nation. He also said two more things that kind of contradicted that concept. God said that said more, and you'll have other guests that will discuss it, but one of them is he said that we're going to be exiled and dispersed. We're going to be chucked all over the world. And just stop and think what happens to people when they're exiled. Yeah. What happens to every people. 95% of wars, I'm sure you've seen this in one of the documentaries, 95% of wars are fought over land. Because if you get someone's land, you can get rid of them and they vanish into history. We have been essentially, I mean, not to quote too many famous singers here, but if you look and you search, then you will find it time after time. We've been shocked from country, from place to place to place. And at the end of the day, if you look and you search, you'll find it. But God will be waiting, and he's waiting for us. He says, don't worry, we're going to do it again. We're going to do it again. And each time you think to yourself, okay, God said we're going to be here, and he also said, but I'm going to chuck you all over the place. There has not been a people that have been chucked that have survived. Never. History is the barometer of truth, and it's never happened. But before you jump in, I want to throw one more thing in. And then the fact is, well, okay, but at least we'll survive because we'll be a great big nation. We'll be huge. We'll have so many people. Do you know what the percentage of Jews are in the world? It's ridiculous. I know you know, but if you stop and think for a minute, I want the listeners right now to ask yourself. Ask the person sitting next to you. So how many Jews are in the world? And write it down. Pause this. You can't pause it. It's going to be live for you. But my point is pause it and think. 3, 2, 1. 14 million, I think, is a bumped up number. Or maybe 14 million Jews. It makes no sense.
It's insane.
It makes no sense.
Totally.
God says you're going to be here forever. You'll be exiled and dispersed. You'll be few in number, but you'll be here forever. Come on, God. Seriously. Come on.
Amazing. Rav, keep on doing what you do, my friend. Keep on being the light to the world. Thank you for your insights and your wisdom. Looking forward to getting you back on the show soon.
Okay, my friend. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. That was Rav Gav, and it's exactly right. It's incredible that we're here, and we can't take it for granted. And we have to take a few minutes on this show tonight and just breathe that in for a second. We're sitting here celebrating Shabbat. That means we're connecting back to thousands of years of other Jews. Just think about what this means. Other Jews for thousands of years are doing this. They're not doing it on Zoom, for sure not, but they're still doing it. It's an incredible thing that we're a part of. Okay, I'll tell you what else we've been doing for 3,332 years. We've been saying Shabbat Shalom to each other. That's for sure. If there's one thing that we're doing is talking. I'm positive that's one of our greatest talents, eating and talking. So I want to give a couple of Shabbat Shaloms. While I do that, I want to launch Kahoot. So we're going to go to Kahoot right now. Let's have the Project Inspired team pull up Kahoot. And while they pull up Kahoot, we're going to have a couple of Shabbat Shaloms. Shabbat Shalom from Ozzy in Baltimore. Shabbat Shalom to you. Okay, Kahoot's here. Let's do that for a second. Okay, 849-3767. 849-3767. You could just mute the Kahoot thing. That's wonderful. 849-3767. As everybody pulls up, let's get some Shabbat Shaloms. To Erica and Roger Matloff, Shabbat Shalom. To Nama and David from Pittsburgh, Shabbat Shalom to you. Michael and Rochelle Kersner, thank you both. Shabbat Shalom to you. Henya, Shabbat Shalom to you. The Novak family from Toronto, Shabbat Shalom to you. To Ruth and Moshe in Miami, Shabbat Shalom. Al and Stacy Levinrad from California, Shabbat Shalom to you. Leah from Quebec, Shabbat Shalom to you. The Mervis family in Silver Spring, Shabbat Shalom. Don't you love this? Look how fast we are. We're everywhere. Oh, I love the Jewish people. Rivka Tyler, Patriots Rock. Shabbat Shalom and good luck. Shiri Eshel from Mountain View, California. Mark Cohen from Mountain View, California. The Bopels from Miami. Shabbat Shalom. As our Kahoot signs up, everybody please go on to Kahoot. You get it on your app or you get it on the computer. It's competitive. I know that I get calls from people in between wherever you are playing. If you for some reason can't get on, play with the people next to you. Just compete. That's what brings out the best in us, I guess. 849-3767. Not everyone's going to agree with what I just said. Barney Artel, Shabbat Shalom from Austin. Okay, we're good for Kahoot. Let's roll. First question. How do you say nation in Hebrew? Umah, Medina, Eretz, and Yabeshet. Umah, Medina, Eretz, or Yabeshet. To Helene and Boca, Shabbat Shalom. Jamie's mom and poppy in Bala Kinwood, Shabbat Shalom, Nachas. Lawrence and Hillary Hessen Fairlawn, Shabbat Shalom. The Beer family from Fairlawn, New Jersey. Shabbat Shalom to the Silvers as well in Highland Park. Here's the answer. It's Ummah. The answer is Ummah. I know Medina was tight. It was a close one, but it's Ummah. Eretz is the land. Medina is the state. Ummah is the nation. All right, let's roll. What's next? Let's see how we did. Benzian RM Browns Rock. Sounds like it's a competitor to Patriots Rock. Rach, which may be Rachel, and the winner, Chana. Okay, here goes. Next question. Who started the custom of lighting Shabbat candles? Noah, Sarah, Abraham, or Rebecca? Noah, Sarah, Abraham. These are great questions. Who started the custom of Shabbat candles? Leah Perel from New York, Shabbat Shalom. Rabbi Claire Ginsburg Goldstein from Bergenfield, Shabbat Shalom. Helen from Toronto, Shabbat Shalom. Linda Schwartz from Annandale, Virginia, Shabbat Shalom. Here goes. What's the answer? Here it is. Sarah. Wow. You guys killed it. Benzian Browns Rock RM, who continues to perform, winner, and the Silver family. Here goes. Next one. What was the name of the ship of German Jewish refugees that was turned away from both American and Cuban ports in 1939? The Nina, the Mayflower, the St. Louis, or the Titanic? You can get this from Process of Elimination. The Cantras family in Suffern, Shabbat Shalom. Risa and Brian Wolf from Oak Park, Michigan, Shabbat Shalom. Suzanne from Birmingham, Shabbat Shalom. Rav Gav is the best. Those are the notes for him. Jen from Georgia, Shabbat Shalom. Here goes. What's the answer? There we go. Very good. I see someone knows at least part of the American history. Let's see how we did today. Benzion continues. The Browns rock. Jamie's mom. Winner and Rach. Okay, here goes. Last question. Who was the first prime minister of Israel? Chaim Weizmann, Golda Meir, Theodor Herzl, or David Ben-Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel. This should be a gimme to many people. To the Heifetz family, Lori Heifetz, Upper West Side. Did I get that right? Lori Heifetz. Shabbat Shalom. Here goes. What's the answer? David Ben-Gurion. Very good. David Ben-Gurion. Okay, let's see how we did. Third place, Chana. Second place, Jamie's mom. Wow, and the first place is the Browns rock. This is incredible. We got Patriots and Browns right here rocking. This is an incredible thing. Thanks so much for joining us and being a part of this. I'm still cracking up. For those who were here last week, I want you to understand something. For those that were watching last week, if you weren't watching this week, I got to bring you up to what I think is Kahoot history. I'm still thinking about it. Last week, question 4, Kahoot. Do you remember it? Last week, question 4, Kahoot was, what is the most stressful thing? And there was multiple choices. And one of the choices was jail. The other choice was marriage. And I told Rabbi Ginniger, don't do it. It's a gimme. And the number one answer was marriage. Most people thought that marriage is more stressful than jail. I just wanted to note that for the record. To this day, I'm still going crazy over it. My family loved it. Thank you, everybody, for playing. Congratulations to Browns Rock, a clear rival to Patriots Rock. And thanks so much for joining us and playing. If you want to get your prizes, go to projectinspire.com, and you get all your good stuff. One correction. It's not September 4th. It's September 14th. The Project Inspire dinner, the event you don't want to miss. September 14th. Mark it on your calendars. Okay, we're up to our next guest. Another incredibly powerful, inspirational, informational speaker is a man named Max Anteby. Max Anteby is the CFO of Icer Brands. He's a popular speaker for discovery seminars for over 20 years, as well as many other Jewish organizations. He's the author of several books, including The Jewish Theory of Everything, Spiritual Life, Judaism to the Max, and Judaism Beyond the Max. He's also a proud member and speaker for the Syrian Sephardic community of Brooklyn, New York. Max, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. We've been talking about the Jewish people. And I want to bring something up as a question to you. We are talking about being the eternal nation. I told the story earlier about a Nazi's son who recognized the eternality of it. But that's cool in itself, to be an eternal nation. How do you balance that against the intense anti-Semitism that we've been facing all of these years and the contradictory promise of this being a light to the nation? It seems like these things are all contradictory. How do you make sense of it all?
So, first of all, I love Rav God. He's great, but I think he made a mistake. It's just impossible. It's impossible that we're not going to have a homeland, that we're going to be exiled, that we're going to be small in number, and we're going to live forever. It just can't happen. So I thought about it. While you were doing Kahoot, I don't have the app, sorry. I thought about how is it possible? So I said the only way that we can continue to exist in exile with no homeland is if every place we go, everybody loves us. I think even with the mute, I think I hear people laughing.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't love us? No? I think like we're the world's puppy dogs. Everybody talks about us. We're on the front page of every newspaper. The left talks about us. The right talks about us. Everybody loves us. No? No, I don't think so. So if they don't love us, how is it that we can't exist? The same as what Rav God had told us, is that there is a prediction in the Torah, in the Bible, that it says in several different places, it says you will become an object of horror, an example among all the nations to which God will lead you. Anti-Semitism. And we are going to be the example of the world. It's the oldest hatred in the world. Ever since Abraham, our forefather, was thrown into the fiery furnace, people hated us. It's universal, as we see it today. Every nation in the world has that vocal part of their population that's calling out against the Jewish people. It's intense. As we've discussed before, as you've mentioned, we have the Holocaust, we have the pogroms, we have the exiles, we have the expulsions, we have all those terrible things. And it's irrational. It just doesn't make sense. They hate us because we're rich and powerful. When we weren't rich and powerful, they hated us anyway. They hate us because we're communists. They hate us because we're capitalists. They hate us because we stay by ourselves, and then when we assimilate, we're rooting their superior race. And they hate us because they think today that we're white supremacists. And they don't realize who was marching with Martin Luther King in all of his marches of freedom. So possibly the only way that we can get by is to live under the radar. No one will see us. No one will know us. Very simple. As Rav God said, there's about, make the numbers round, 15 billion people, 15 million Jews in the world, 7.5 billion people. If you do your math, that's 0.2% of the world's population. That's what we are. So maybe no one will hear of us. Now, my kids have been learning at home because of COVID, so I've been watching them. I learned mathematics. I learned how to round to the nearest whole number. 0.2% round to the nearest whole number. Zero. We don't exist. That's it. No one will ever know us. But there's a problem. I mean, we've won 25% of all the Nobel Prizes since the beginning. We have a drive to perfect the world, whether it's in the religious field, science, technology, medicine, the structure of society. There's a book called The Jewish Mystique, written by Ernst van den Haag. And he says in there that there were 4 men, who have influenced the world more in the last 200 years. Freud, Einstein for sure, Karl Marx, and Darwin. 3 of them are Jewish, and the last guy was wrong. How do we do that? How do we do that? Once we were allowed into the colleges, allowed into society with the Enlightenment, we just moved ahead. We have this drive to perfect the world. The values of the Bible are the basis of the Magna Carta, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution of the United States. It doesn't make sense. If everybody hates us, why do they listen to us? They do. How did we rise above this hatred and enlighten the world? It just doesn't make sense to me. It's got to be something wrong. No homeland, scattered among the world. Everybody hates us. We're few in number. Everybody listens to us. How does that happen? You're probably familiar with a British historian named Paul Johnson. He wrote a book called The History of Christianity. Major book on the New York Times bestselling list for many, many years. And he said, everywhere he looked at Christianity, he saw the Jews. He says, after I finish writing this book, I'm going to write a book about the Jews, called The History of the Jews. I want to quote to you what Paul Johnson, non-Jewish historian, says about us, the Jewish people. He says, without the Jews, this world would have been a radically different place. To them, we owe the idea of equality before the law, sanctity of life, social responsibility, peace as an abstract ideal, and love as the basis of justice, and many other ideas that form the basic moral furniture of the mind. That's us. We've done that. People don't like us, but basically they know that what we speak is the truth. And sooner or later, the truth has to win out.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think we did. When the Torah came down from Mount Sinai, everybody recognized that the values that are in there are the truth that mankind has to live by. And in fact, as Paul Johnson says, sanctity of life, child sacrifice, human sacrifice, all those things are wrong. Everybody's life is valuable. Everyone's life. Equal justice for everyone. We're the ones who set up the court system. We told everybody you have to have justice, 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 justice. It's repeated many, many times throughout the Bible. And people recognize that's a truth. And sooner or later, you have to want to abide by that. So regardless of how they feel about us, regardless of the fact that they don't like what we stand for, which is goodness.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating in hearing it's driving home this very unique message, which is the following. Here's how I'm hearing it. The odds is zero. Like no one would bet the stock called the Jewish people. Like that's like the worst bet in the world, right? The odds are nothing. You're winning this game is over.
Just my financial advisor.
Right. Forget it. Like the thought that like a small little nation scatters the world, gets beat up everywhere, is everyone's problem for every cause of everything. Like even now, today's day and age, like both, it's just ridiculous. Like it's getting to a point when like, you know, it gets to a point when someone's like anti-Semitism and like people are still shocked. Like, what are you like? Oh my gosh! Like they don't like us. Like it's getting to a point where like it's normal for us to expect people to hate us, which is so insane. Take all that together. That should lead to total annihilation. And not only does it lead to survival, which would be insane, it leads to influence. It leads to additive thought. It leads to world-shaping ideas. And what's driving your point, which I want to make sure is clear because I'm getting it, is that it's as if God handed us the truth and said, listen, learn, and live it, and go scatter around and share it. And I'm never going to keep you comfortable, because if I keep you comfortable, you're going to be booking out. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure the fire is on just high enough to make sure that you know who's who. But at the same time, I'm going to teach you that you just be you. You just drive as hard as you can. You just do what's right. And what's going to happen is your ideas will take place, and you will look back in history and go, wow, we really did shape this world.
You make a very, very interesting point, and that is that most of us don't appreciate who we are.
Yeah.
I want to leave you with a quote.
Yeah.
I don't know how much time I have left. I want to leave you with a quote. Charlie, I think you know who said it, but I want to let the audience, maybe you'll put this on Kahoot next week.
Okay. Don't totally give me an answer then.
Quote. He says, even if there had never been a synagogue or a Jewish school or the Old Testament, the Jewish spirit would still exist and exert its influence. It has been there from the beginning. And there is no Jew, not a single one, who does not personify it.
Oh, I love it.
We represent goodness. Who said it?
Adolf Hitler.
No, Elijah the prophet, Moses, King David. We are the greatest nation. John Adams, second president of the United States, says, he says, we are the most glorious nation ever to inhabit the earth. When you, people who are listening, think about the Jewish people, do you think that you belong to the most glorious nation in the history of the world? Yeah. People recognize that. Yeah. You have to recognize it. You have to appreciate who we are, what we've done for the world. Our greatest enemy, the one who hated us the most in the last 100 years, he understood what we are. And we rose from the hatred to change.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. You know who knew us? Hitler knew us. He knew who each and every one what it was and the power of it. You know, I got to tell you, in today's day and age, sometimes you look to the right, look to the left, and you go, he's not like me or she's not like me. I'm not a good enough Jew and all this other stuff. You know who never said that? Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler said, a Jew's a Jew. Every Jew's valuable. You got to learn. Very good.
Yes.
Rabbi Max Antaby, thank you so much for being part of this program. God bless you. Shabbat Shalom. And thank you so much for joining us.
Shabbat Shalom. Regards to your pop.
Thank you. Will do. She's watching, I'm sure. That was Max Antaby. And this is exactly the point. This is why we're doing the show. It's so important to take a minute to do these things, to think about us, to be proud of who we are. Nothing wrong being proud of who you are. And nothing wrong with slowing down and understanding who we are. The improbability of who we are. The thought of what we've accomplished as a nation and how we're a part of that. That means you and I, whether you think you're a good Jew or a bad Jew, or you're from this place or from that place, it's all, as they say in Yiddish, Narishkeit. At the end of the day, we're part of something special, and we need to appreciate that. A couple more Shabbat Shalom before we get to our next part of the program. Shabbat Shalom to Tzvi Stoner from Boca Raton, Florida, to Miriam Daba from Lakewood. Shabbat Shalom to Marilyn Bodner from Fair Lawn, New Jersey. Okay, let's go to our next part of the program. I know her mom and dad are watching. Jamie Geller. Jamie's always been with us. A highlight for us to see Jamie Geller. Check out the latest Jamie Geller video right now.
Thank you, Charlie, so much. And hello, everybody. I know this week's show topic is heavy and intense. So we're going to give you a little break this segment. We want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy as we transport you to Shuk Machane Yehuda, the famed open-air market here in Israel, in the heart of Jerusalem. Now, you can turn off your brains for this segment and turn on your taste buds, because all we want from you is to salivate as we have a war of desserts. It's kanafe versus rugelach. Enjoy and Shabbat Shalom.
I'm Jamie Geller, and my mission in life is to bring you the best eats, food and drink from Israel, the entirety of the land of Israel. But today we are in the holy city of Jerusalem at Machane Yehuda, famously, affectionately, and simply known as the Shuk, the market. This is where you come to shop, eat, drink, morning, noon, or night, alone or with friends. You have not experienced the food scene in Israel unless you've come here. But today I'm going to show you something super special. It's the battle of desserts. An Ashkenazi classic versus a Middle Eastern delicacy. Kanafe versus rugelach. We're in Marzipan Bakery, possibly one of the most famous bakeries in Israel. They're known for their super rich, super chocolatey rugelach. They export now to the States, but honestly, ain't nothing like tasting one of these babies hot out of the oven. Come take a look at this.
Rugelach is a Jewish pastry of Ashkenazic origin, popular in Israel, and commonly found in most Jewish cafes and bakeries around the world. Traditional rugelach are made in the form of a crescent by rolling a triangle of dough around a filling. Special and exclusive to Marzipan is this incredible sugar syrup that's brushed, really drenched all over the top.
Look how wet it is. It's baked perfectly, it's wet, it's crispy and doughy.
Amen.
Look at that chocolate. There's almost no dough. It's really only chocolate. The chocolate's crispy around the edges. It's creamy in the inside. Look how thin that dough is.
You have a crispiness and a golden brown, yet it's almost slightly underbaked on the bottom, which makes it doughy. If I wasn't on camera, I'd eat it all in one bite. Let me just show you how you're really supposed to eat this rogalach. Look. There's no words to describe what this tastes like. Amon chocolate, so much chocolate is dripping out. It's like the biggest chocolate to dough ratio of any rogalach in the world. 44 Abripas, come by, taste it hot out of the oven. Bring your own napkins.
Just a few blocks away, inside the shuk is Kanafe Ir David, where you can order your very own pan of this sweet and crispy pastry. Kanafe is a traditional Arab dessert made with a thin, noodle-like pastry called kada'if. Or alternatively, it can be made with a fine semolina dough. It's typically layered with a brine, cheese, or even clotted cream. Once crisp and hot, it's soaked in a sweet sugar-based syrup and topped with crushed pistachio nuts.
So both the rugelach and the kanafe are finished with sugar water, but that's where the similarity begins and ends. Let's take a bite here. Oh my gosh. The texture of those pan-fried, shredded pastry here, and the crispy edges are addictive. It's actually not too sweet, which is pretty amazing. And the cheese is like a briny, creamy, stringy quality to it. Finished off with those crumbled pistachios. It is really, really, really hard to pick a winner. But I have chosen my winner. And it's going to surprise you because it surprised the stuffing out of me. Honestly, it floored me. Let me first explain what's going on here. I don't even like rugelach. I never met a rugelach that I liked. And I never met a cheese Danish that I didn't like. The cheese that's used in the kanafe is a mix between goat cheese and cow's cheese. It wasn't stringy like a mozzarella, and it wasn't creamy like a goat cheese. Instead, the combination kind of resulted in a rubbery cheese, similar to like a halloumi. So because of that, the rugelach, which honestly should not even be classified as a rugelach, it's one of the best, most delicious, most melt in your mouth, crescent roll little dough things I have ever tasted. So because of the cheese, I am picking the rugelach. But don't think it's because I'm Ashkenazi, because my heart's in the East. And if I would remake that kanafe recipe, I will put a link below to show you exactly how to make it at home. And I'll put a link to the rugelach just so you can make that too. And I'll put a link to a shortcut rugelach just so you can make that too. But if I would remake that kanafe recipe with a creamy goat cheese, it would have been a kanafe. But as it stands, as I've tasted them, it is the rugelach. Now you vote. I want to see if you agree. I'm not the final word, although I'm close to it. Let's see what you guys think. And honestly, it's gonna stop. That's a wrap.
Thank you, Jamie, for that, and thank you for bringing us back a little bit to the state of Israel. I can't tell you how badly I want to be walking down those streets of the shuk to get any of those incredible things. Before we get to the next guest, I want a couple more shout outs and Shabbat Shaloms to Karen Stoner, Shabbat Shalom to Judy and Clifton, Shabbat Shalom to you. And now we're up to our next guest. Our next guest is a rabbi who I have been watching for years. Incredible. His name is Rabbi Milstein, Rabbi Rachmiel Milstein. He has spent the better part of the last 30 years lecturing on behalf of Asia Torah Discovery Program, Project Inspire, Project Chazon, and many others. He currently resides in Lakewood, New Jersey, where he leads the congregation Isha Yisrael. But I want to tell you a little bit more before I let him talk. I remember when I first started getting involved in Asia Torah, just sitting back and watching Rabbi Milstein go and thinking, that's it. With the passion, the knowledge, the energy, the wisdom, it's all one package. Rabbi, welcome to the show.
Great to be here. How are you, Charlie?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for joining us. We've been talking about the Jewish people. I know a subject you care about very, very deeply.
Favorite topic.
We're talking about really the improbability of the Jewish people. We spoke to Rav Gav in the beginning. We spoke to Max Antiby. And now I want to talk to you about this idea of exile in Israel. We spoke about our relationship to the improbability of our existence. We spoke about how even anti-Semitism is another nuance, how do we navigate in a world where there's anti-Semitism in Land to the Nations. But where I really want to drive you towards is something that people may be forgetting, which is the relationship to us being in exile in the state of Israel. How is that possible?
Well, the first thing you have to recognize is that the exile that we're talking about is no ordinary exile. What's happened to us is that we have been dispersed. Now, just think for a moment, try to occupy the mindset of a dictator, of a conqueror, of a barbarian, and you can't just conquer the country. Would you go out and spend a ton of money on relocating people to other places? Or do you kill off the leadership and you let the little people work for you? You enslave them. You make sure they become subservient to you. They mine the land for all its riches, and it goes back to the conquering nation. Isn't that really what would happen? Of course that's what happens. I'm not going to say, no, the Syrians go to Flatbush, and the Russians go to Brighton Beach. And it's expensive. It's ridiculous. It doesn't happen. And yet the Torah in Leviticus tells us, and you I will scatter among the nations at the point of my drawn sword, leaving your country desolate and your cities in ruins, right? The Torah tells us it's not just exile. We're going to be dispersed. It doesn't make sense. History doesn't do that to people. It doesn't make sense. So just to make our existence, I guess today even more glorious, God says, you know what? I'm not just going to exile them. I'm going to disperse them. Tiny pockets of people in different countries throughout the world spread out. Now, if you're going to be the best candidate for eternal nation status, if you're going to be the people that's supposed to last to the end of all time better than anybody else in the world, you probably should give the people a place to hang their hats on, a country to live in. God says, no. Not just exile, but dispersion. It doesn't happen. It's never happened. It's never, ever happened that a people's been exiled and dispersed. Yes, some people, the Romans temporarily, they had certain people going to different places to destroy the sense of identity. But to take an entire nation and do this, unheard of. And then on top of that we are the people that go back and we accomplish another miracle. We accomplish a miracle of return to the land. It's an incredible feat. How many people, having been exiled, we know that's a very small number, but how many nations having been exiled actually returned to their land? That's correct, 0.
Right.
It's never happened. There's no such thing. You do not hang on to your identity when you're exiled, dispersed, and as Max Anthony said, you are hated more than anybody else, right? And Rav Gav was talking about the fact that we are the most unlikely of heroes in terms of being the best candidates to live anywhere. We should be gone. We should be totally gone. And yet, we return to the land of Israel. It's actually predicted that we got no place to be, but at the end of time, guess what? You're coming back to the land. And that's in Deuteronomy. I'm going to read this next week. Anybody goes to shul next week, anybody goes to synagogue next week, they're going to read this next week in Parashat Ki Tavo. And the Torah tells us, and the Lord your God shall return you from your captivity and have compassion upon you. He shall return you from among all the nations. I mean, we're going to be living among all the nations. And he returns us, and Jews in Israel today, in fact, come from 110 different countries. Ezekiel tells us, thus says God, I will gather you from the nations and assemble you from the lands where you have been scattered, and I will give you the land of Israel. Incredible. It's incredible. This just doesn't happen. And on top of that, we do it in style. So before we take this home, I just want to focus us on something which is incredible. How is it that in our absence, over so many years, no nation has taken firm hold of the land? No other nation in our absence has made it their homeland. How is it that for thousands of years, we're talking about thousands of years, no other nation in the world was able to somehow come to the land of Israel, take it over, make it theirs? Now, there are people today who claim that. There's no question they claim that. But we know that, the great Palestinian Yasser Arafat was born in, right? Egypt. He wasn't a Palestinian at all, right? That's the fictional part. But no nation, nobody, the Brits have tried, the Turks have tried. They're vast and mighty people. Why isn't that they took firm root of the land? So the truth is, there's something much, much more miraculous than we've been discussing all this time, which, by the way, is miraculous enough. But there's something much more miraculous. It turns out that the Maharsha, one of the great commentaries on the Talmud, tells us that there's a special blessing about the land of Israel. And this is a very unique blessing. And the blessing is that as long as Israel, as long as the Jewish people are not living in the land, the land will lose its fertility and stop bearing fruit. You got this? Here it is. Jews live in the land, it gives its fruit. They stop living in the land, it doesn't give its fruit, right? Now, this is an incredible, incredible thing to say, because I don't know too many lands that care about who lives on it. I don't understand. What do? When you're a farmer, you stick your credit card with the magnetic stripe into the ground, and if it's the right,
Sorry.
it comes up.
We can't identify you.
It's incredible. What does that mean? What does it even mean to make this prediction? And again, the Marshal lives in the 17th century. What does it mean? What does it even mean to say that? Why would you say that? And based upon the teachings of the rabbis, it turns out the land is supposed to be a very fertile land, but the Torah actually predicts when the Jews are not living there, it's going to be an empty and desolate land. It's going to be a land that no one lives. It's going to be a land that doesn't treat its owners kindly. The Turkish soldiers that were there, when they occupied the land, the Ottoman Empire, they couldn't make the land grow a stitch. It just didn't work for them. When the Brits lived there, I don't know about you, but I've toured Britain extensively for Aisha Torah. I mean, I've been all over the place in Britain, right? Britain is a very beautiful, lush country. It's really gorgeous. It's gorgeous. You travel on the highways and byways and you see fields of green. They're good farmers. Jews are not particularly known for being great farmers. I mean, in my family, we didn't know which way was up on the rake. Let's be honest, right? We're not good farmers. And then suddenly we come to the land and Israel has become the agricultural miracle of the world. I was in Washington many years ago. I used to be working for Laniato Hospital in Netanya, and we're an American institution abroad, and we would qualify what's called AID money from the government. So I used to have to go to Washington and talk to the senators and talk to the leaders of the House and try to get them to award us this money, this foreign aid money that they would give out to American organizations abroad. And I met with the Senate Foreign Relations Chair. I forget his name. He was a fellow from the South, had a deep Southern accent, and I walked into the room, and you should excuse me, he looked like a redneck. And I look like a rabbi. I don't know if you can tell, but I kind of look like a rabbi. And I come into the room and he looks at me and says, Rabbi, why I lock the Jews? I said, no, sir. He said, because your boys in Israel, they're such brilliant agricultural geniuses that they can plant right here on this floor. And the floor was a beautiful ceramic tile inlaid floor, your hard-earned tax money at work in Washington, right? They can plant here. There'll be flowers blooming in the morning. We're becoming this agriculture. We didn't know which way was up on a rake. But that's what the rabbis say. The Torah says, when they're off the land, it doesn't grow. But when they're on the land is an agricultural miracle. Who hasn't enjoyed Jaffa oranges? The cherry tomatoes, invented in Israel, in case you don't know that, right? Incredible. Incredible. The words of the rabbis coming alive. People look at the old prophets and they say, wow, would we have prophets today? Are you kidding me? The days that the prophets made the prophecies, they didn't come true yet. But we get to see the prophecies come true. We get to see the prophecy, an eternal nation, no land to live in, hated more than anybody. And with what style we've come back to the land of Israel. I'm going to share with you a story, if I may. I had an uncle who passed away just a couple of years ago. His name was Uncle Itzik. His last name was Ganat. He's the brother of, I think, your music teacher, Moshe Ganat, in Flatbush Yeshiva, if I remember correctly. And he, great man, truly great man. He survived the Holocaust literally by his whiskers. I mean, just barely survived the Holocaust. 16-year-old kid, comes to America, manages to survive, gets back on a banana boat and heads back to Israel. He's fighting the war in 1948. He's volunteering to fight in Israel. He's fixing tanks. He was a mechanic, fixing tanks, fixing trucks. And every once in a while, we'd ask Uncle Itzik, tell me, what was it like fighting in 1948? He says, how I fought in 1948? It wasn't no big deal. I had a tractor and I fought. You say, how do you fight with the tractor? He says, it's very simple, he says. You pick up the shovel, the tractor in front of you. That way, any bullets that are coming, hopefully it'll stop the bullets. And then you take a milk bottle and you put a little gasoline, you tear off a piece of your shirt, you throw it in, you light it, and you throw it at them. And Charlie, we won.
And they were heavily armed.
Of course they're heavily armed. The British had a one-way arms embargo in Israel. And the other people were getting everything. The Arabs were getting everything. We got nothing. We got nothing. We had milk bottles with a rag, and some gasoline inside. And if you aimed well, hopefully you scored your hit.
Incredible.
And we won.
Incredible.
We are living in the age of prophecy, my friends. We're living in the age of miracles. Israel, you figure that Israel should have been so beat up. I think it was an op-ed, I believe it was the New York Times in 1948. They were discussing whether or not the state of Israel will ever turn into a nation. And they doubted it. And they wrote that no people could have their moral courage so beaten up, so destroyed by the Nazis, by the Germans, by the Holocaust, and still rise up again and manage their own affairs independently. Just couldn't be done. Well, guess what? We did it. And rising like a phoenix from the still warm ashes of the crematoria, Israel was born. And Israel exists. And Israel is the cradle of technology. And Israel has done great things. It's not like we've just barely survived. We survived, but boy, are we there. Boy, are we present. Torah study increasing to a level never before known in the diaspora. The tremendous number of children that are still running around the streets of Jerusalem, like you said before, they shouldn't be there. We shouldn't be there. There should be no vibrancy. There should be no youth. There should be no birth rate. But yet we're there. This is who we are as a people. These are the predictions made for us. And all of the previous people, we can feel sorry for them. They didn't get to see what we see. We are truly living in the age of prophecy. We are living in the age of miracles. We are living in the age of the ingathering of the exile of Jews from more than 100 countries. Every single day is a miracle, like Rav Gav said, but to us, kind of like it looks like rain, and we don't really see the wonder of rain unless you really sit down and think about it. So a great thing to do this Shabbat is for everybody to think about what you've just seen, think about what you witnessed, to count the ways that you feel lucky to be Jewish, to count the ways that you feel fortunate that we get to see this part of Jewish history, the flowering of Jews in Israel, the flowering of Judaism throughout the world, that we get to see not just survival, but we get to see the thriving of the Jewish people in our day. What a miracle. What an amazing time to be alive. What a great opportunity it is to reflect upon how fortunate we are to be Jewish.
Rabbi, thank you so much for your words. I'm inspired by them, and I'm sure everyone's going to spend the time on Shabbat really thinking it through. Appreciate your light. Appreciate your words. Good Shabbos.
Charlie, the best. When I grow up, I want to be just like you.
Shabbos, Rabbi. And with that, that's our show today. And really, I want to end with what the Rabbi just said, because he said something that triggered in my head. And with this, I want to end. Shabbat's a time of reflection, or Shabbat's times of appreciation. You stand when you say Kiddush and you turn to God and you give testimony to him creating the world. It's an incredible moment. And you give testimony to the fact that he created a bond with us. The rabbi said something incredible I want to end with. I remember once we took our kids on Passover to a program. And one of my kids, whatever, they were fetching a little bit. You get used to living a different life when you're on a Pesach program. And we sat down over dinner and we tried to explain to our children, this isn't going to last forever, like all the food and the pool and the whole deal. Don't not take this in. Don't miss what's in front of you. Because if you miss what's in front of you, you're not going to feel what you're supposed to feel. You're privileged. You're here on this program. Don't be blind to what's in front of you. Rabbi Milstein said, I want to end with what he said. We're living in the times of prophecy. We don't have a prophet. We have the back end of the prophet. When the prophet made the call, no one was around to know he was right. We're living in the times of prophecy. It's insane. We have to stop and just let that in. I am part of a nation. I am living in the times of prophecy. I feel so blessed to be who I am. And I'm so proud of it that I want other people to experience it as well. That's the joy of what it means to be a Jew. And that's Shabbat. Shabbat, God says, whoa, 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 whoa. Don't run, don't run, don't run. Whoa, we have a bond, me and you. Look at what I've been doing for you. Not bad, huh? You're living in a Pesach program. All right, ups and downs, but don't let your life go by without stopping to appreciate the privilege. So on behalf of me and mine, to you and yours, I want to wish you a thoughtful, an appreciative, an inspiring, a restful Shabbat. May we use this Shabbat to swell our pride for who we are, and may that pride spill over to everyone that we know. We're part of something special. Doesn't mean we're better than other people, but we're part of something special, and it's important to know who you are. And no matter where you are in the world watching, no matter how good or bad you think you are a piece of a miracle. And that's incredible. Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom. And I hope and I pray that next week we get to do this live from Jerusalem. But if not, with God's help, I hope to see you again next week at 5:30. Shabbat Shalom.